into the room. You're free to just be you. Tell me your story, and we will go exploring. Let's explore together.
Hello and welcome to Sack in the City. Today we're joined with Annie. Annie has no children, has never been married. So my question for Annie is, how many cats do you have?
I have 2 dead cats. They both live to be over 20 years old, so you can do the math. I'm 56 years old, and I buried my last cat about 5 years ago. But one at a time.
My condolences.
Thank you.
My
I
joke.
still miss my Figa.
Viga?
Figa.
Figa. My apologies. That's a really good name.
It's pussy in Italian.
I feel like I should know that. and my apologies. Now I feel like such an ass for making that cat joke. You know,
okay.
I mean,
It's all right.
just
It's
listen.
an
It
assumption that
is.
people
It
arrive at.
is. You
It
know,
is.
you're a single lady.
It is.
You must have 9 cats.
I don't.
So you don't.
No,
but
I
they
don't.
both were like happy and healthy and lived to a really
That's why
long
I don't
life.
have another. I work too much.
Oh, yes.
I would feel neglectful.
So I think that we know there's a little bit of stigma in our society when you're a certain age and you have never been married and you don't have any children.
Correct.
I think unfortunately there's some stigma there that people think that you must be a troll.
I've been called everything from someone who does not know how to love other people to a lesbian to just a mean old lady.
Well,
And I don't think any of those things, well, I know none of those things are
sure.
true.
From
None of
spending
those
time with
things are
you,
true.
I don't think any
Perhaps
of that.
I may not be the greatest at knowing how to love someone else. I mean, as a partner,
Sure.
because I have tried.
Sure.
And I've tried hard. You know, I've had several long-term relationships, but I have a pattern of 5-year relationships, and then I'm it's like either move on or let's go.
Now, can I ask you, is it kind of maybe a 5-year itch, if you will, where it's that, you know, not to be rude or crude, but like...
It's not like I'm pressuring these men like, hey, marry me. That's never been my intent.
Sure.
But I think after 5 years, you either realize, like, either we're on the same page and we want the same things, like we want just this nice relationship, we want to travel together, maybe grow old together, but we don't intermingle our finances. We you know, there's just always confusion about that.
Right.
Men have always wanted something from me that I was unable to provide,
Okay.
whether it be a commitment or a marriage or, you know, just certain personal things. Like
Sure.
they wanted things like sexually I wasn't willing to provide, or they wanted, you know, to intermingle finances with me, which I'm not comfortable doing.
Sure. So
Or vice versa.
there
you know?
was a point though that you wanted to get married, that maybe you're
When
open
I was
to.
very young, in my early 20s, of course I had that.
I was gonna say,
that
what do you
thing.
consider very young?
I consider very young teens and 20s, early
Okay.
20s. By the time I was probably 23 or 24, I knew that that was not an aisle I would ever walk down.
By 23?
I think so, yes.
Wow, because that's the
Yeah.
age normally people are gearing up to get
Right,
married.
right.
And
And
that's
a
the
lot of
age
my
you
friends
decided,
were.
not for me.
No, not for me at all.
Right.
I was raised very, very Catholic, and to me, marriage is not like some 2 people falling in love and like traipsing off to the sunset together. It's marrying something bigger than yourself.
Right.
And I had never met a man at that point, and I still haven't, that would have the same ideal or commitment to a marriage
Sure.
that I would. To me, and I also didn't ever want to have children.
Okay.
So also, what's the point? You know.
Now, you mentioned being Catholic, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but in the Catholic culture, if you will, getting married and having children is kind of a big deal. Would you agree with that?
Would agree with that, but the way I was raised as a Catholic, more of the deal or more of the focus was put on being of service to others and helping people who need your help.
Sure.
And that's the kind of Catholic I would like to think I am.
Right.
So that's where my faith is based, and that's the kind of Catholic woman I would like
Did
to
you
be.
have any relationships that you felt didn't work out just based on the fact that you did not want children?
No.
There was a lot of other components going on.
No, that was never an issue. No, never.
Yeah.
Never got to that point. I remember my very first serious relationship where I thought I loved this guy and we should get married. I was very young. I was 23, and he and I are still very close friends to this day. I remember I asked him one day, if I were in like a horrible, disfiguring car accident and in a wheelchair, would you still be with me? Would you still take care of me? Would you be my partner? And he said no. And I said, well, that answers that. Because that's the sort of commitment. If I'm going to make a commitment to someone, that's the sort of man I want to stand by me.
That's pretty profound. It's
That's
I think,
how I consider marriage.
well, I think they
It's
call
like
it the ride or die. The ride or die.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Sickness and health.
Yeah.
You know. So that I remember that was the last time I ever asked anyone about marriage or about a serious commitment.
Going there.
Yeah.
How long ago was that, if I may ask?
Almost 30 years ago. Almost 30 years ago.
Have you felt that inkling since in the last 30?
Not one iota.
Not one iota.
No.
So you've already mentioned you don't want to have kids.
No.
You don't want to have kids.
No.
And you knew that from a really, really young age.
I knew that very young. I think from the time I got my first period. I'm like, this is bad enough.
Well, I have to agree there. Now, there's a lot of people out there that think, especially coming from a female, that if you don't want kids, you don't like them. You can't stand them. How do you feel about that?
I think that's ridiculous. And as I said to you earlier, I'm Irish. I've had a baby on my hip since I was 7 years old. Countless nieces and nephews and cousins. I've always been the person that will volunteer to babysit for the single mother that lives down the street or for a coworker that needs a hand up. You know, I adore children. I adore children. I just, the actual physical part of being pregnant and giving birth to someone is terrifying to me. Terrifying to me. I can't imagine that.
It's not something you want.
It's not something I could even, I just can't even wrap my brain around it. I can't believe people do it and have been doing it for centuries. It's just.
A lot of centuries.
Yeah. No, to me, it's like being split wide open. And in more ways than one. Like even after you have this child, then you have
Really
this human being that you are completely responsible for.
Yes.
And I think that I would probably muck that up in one way or another. I mean, I know I would love them and I would do my best. But I've never felt like my best would be good enough. I'm just not made that way.
Well, I
I'm
understand.
just not made that way.
I think every mother feels that way.
Yeah, I think they do too. And
was it the physical or the emotional part that scared you
both,
more?
but more physical.
Yeah,
more physical. I think
sure.
emotionally I could eventually get there, but physically, oh heavens no.
Personally, I always found it a little silly in our society how we think that a woman has to bear a child in order to become a mother. I think that's really, really silly. I see women all the time that are really, really motherly that don't have children of their own. So to think that, you know, we only become mothers, you know, when we actually have a child come out of our body, I think that's really limited thinking. I think that women and our love and, you know, the tools that we're inept with are so much beyond that. So that's something that I find really interesting personally. Because, yeah, I do see that in you. You're still a mom.
I am a nurturing care provider.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're still a mom.
I always have been. It's what I do in my work. It's what I do with my friends and all my friends and my sisters and cousins that have had children. You know, I've never considered myself less of a woman because I didn't physically give birth. I just, like I said, it's terrifying to me, and I would never do it unless I found what I thought would be a good partner.
Right.
I don't think that it would be suitable for me to do it without a partner.
Right.
I have nothing but thumbs up and kudos for people that do it. And a lot of people enter into relationships and they don't work out and they end up on their own. Everyone does, like I said, everyone does the best they can. I know myself, and I know that if it weren't a situation that I felt perfect in, I would not want to call someone the father of my children or my husband. I wouldn't want to be linked to this person my whole life. I've never met a man that I would want to be linked to my whole life. I've never met anyone and been like, oh my God, I want to have your baby.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's all romantic bullshit, quite frankly. I do. I think women get spoon-fed this ideal of what you're supposed to be as a woman by other people. And until you're actually a woman making your way through America,
right,
you don't have any idea how you're going to feel about certain things. And that's just my...
Have you had a partner that you felt 100% comfortable with? You know, where you could be bloated and no makeup and eating Cheetos in bed.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, I do that. I do that.
And sick, and you do that now.
I do that
but
all
back then, 30 years ago, did you feel that way?
Not so much as I do now.
Sure.
And I've also learned that to be, a more pleasing partner, to be a more palatable companion to someone, you do have to dial that back. I've always kind of been like all out there, like, I don't like poop in front of other people or anything like that, but you know what I mean. It's like there's a level of comfort with certain people. I have no problem being myself and saying how I feel and how I'm feeling. And a lot of men, I've had almost every single partner has said, I would really like it if you tone it down and be more of a lady, or be a little more, someone said something to me when I was complaining about my period. I think he said that you should be more discreet or discretionary, or I forget what he said, but it was an insult. And I told it to my friend, another girlfriend of mine.
You should be on this end, honey.
And she said, if a man said that to me, I would fart in his face.
Let me give you something you can recognize, okay?
Yeah.
A fart. Yeah.
Right.
That's hilarious.
And
wow.
I just, I've always been very comfortable with myself and with all my bodily functions. And if you want to hang around with me, you get the full,
the full gist.
You get the full meal deal.
Yes.
You do.
Yeah. Well, I think that's good because obviously you're being a real person, right? So you're 55. 56. My apologies.
I will be 57 in May.
In May. May what?
May 28th on Memorial Day.
May 28th.
Usually. Yeah.
So I mean you're a Taurus?
No, I'm actually a Gemini. I'm right on the cusp.
I'm learning so many things. Gemini. Oh, you're right on the cusp. Mm-hmm. Oh.
Yeah, I'm nuts.
Oh,
Crazy
I was just going to
lady,
say, stubborn and nuts. I like it. And now you're going through menopause, is that correct?
I think I'm almost finished. I still have, it's not as intense as it was. The last 2 years were intense. But for the last 10 years, I've had symptoms.
But 56, how long have you been going through menopause?
I would say at least 10 years.
So you started early.
46, I think, I don't know what's normal because no one talks about it, no one told me, and I'm not the kind of person that's going to go out and buy books that are written by other women. That's annoying to me. I'm not certain why, but it's...
I'm going through it. I don't need to read about it. Thank you. I feel
exactly
it. Okay.
How I feel.
Yeah, I get that.
And I also didn't think it would be as serious as it is because everyone sort of sweeps it under the rug. And I've seen my sisters go through it, and I've seen good friends go through it, and I saw them suffering, and I just thought it was like a one-off, like, oh, this poor woman, we went out to dinner, and now her hair is wet, and she's standing outside, in 40-degree weather and crying. And I thought, well, bitch is obviously crazy. And now I'm that bitch. I'm the one that they make fun of me at work because I'm lucky enough to work in a restaurant where we have a walk-in of 41-degree, refrigerator.
Sure.
And they joke about moving my office in there because there's plenty of food and wine in there, and we'll just move your desk in there. And
that sounds nice, though.
It does.
Yeah.
And I have no bones about, like, I have been in the middle of a meeting with a customer or a colleague, and I've said, you're going to have to excuse me for a minute. And I just go get in the walk-in because it's literally as if someone set you on fire.
I always found it really interesting that if you were a woman and you make it to a certain age, if you're lucky enough to make it to a certain age, this is something you're going to deal with. This is something you're going to face. It's menopause. Yet, as you mentioned a little while ago, we don't talk about it. In fact, the only time we talk about it is to make jokes.
To make fun of
So
people.
you're crazy and you have hot
Right.
flashes and oh my God, schizo. But we don't ever talk about it like a real conversation.
Yeah.
And I have to go back to this. If you're a woman and you're lucky enough to live to a certain age, this is going to happen. So we do need to start talking about it and educating ourselves. You know,
We
woman
do.
to woman, but also for the men out there that are in our
Right.
lives
It's
that
like,
can better
I'm not
understand
crazy.
what's happening.
My hormones have not made me insane. I'm going through, it's just as normal as puberty. Like people look at 13, 14-year-old children and the way they're behaving and they go, oh, he's pubescent. That's normal.
Right.
That's to be expected. But
Right.
when a woman in her 50s starts acting like that, and it's very similar symptoms and
the hormones.
reactions. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I've been bursting into tears for absolutely no good reason. You know, moments of like just sheer unadulterated rage.
Can I ask you, do you really feel that it's for no good reason, or do you feel that you're more in tune with it, so it's getting at you a little bit more?
No, it is overwhelming, and you don't understand, like, why am I losing it? Why am I embarrassing myself? Why am I behaving this way? When you're in it, you don't really understand it. And when you take a beat, like maybe a few hours later or a couple days later, you can go, oh, that's right. It's like, but you're embarrassed by your bad behavior. You're embarrassed by looking like a sweaty hot mess. You're
Sure.
embarrassed by being so emotional.
But-
and I just want to take the embarrassment and the shame away. It's like, this is what happens to every woman who lives to this point. You know, women didn't used to live this long. So,
True.
You know,
So, but 2 days after you go through and you kind of harness your chi, speaking of,
I'll have
you
a moment
harness
of
your
clarity
chi
and I'll
exactly.
go, oh, the reason why I'm.
But is it something initially that still would have like kind of upset you, but yet because of everything you're going through, it was amplified?
Oh, completely.
Okay.
Everything is amplified like you would not believe.
All your
you know?
emotions.
If
Right.
someone says a cross word to me or perhaps ignores, I have these snappy, I see myself behaving in a way that is not my personality, is not my normal reaction. And I've been going through it long enough now to where I take a step back and go, I'm going to go in the walk-in. I need to cool down. I need a minute. I know enough now because, like I said, I've been experiencing this for the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. So I know enough now to take myself sort of out of the equation. I mean, I have quit jobs. I've made a blunder of my professional and personal life a couple of times, and then you have to go back and say, "Hey, look, I'm sorry. This is what happened. I'm an emotional wreck." Because I'm menopausal, and when you say that to a man, especially, it's like telling them like, something. They're like, oh, okay, I don't want to hear anymore.
Spring up the period again.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It's the exact same. Like
Right.
if you're ever going to call in sick as a woman saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm having female problems, and your manager or your boss or whoever just goes, oh, okay, I'll see you when you feel better.
Yeah, 10-foot
No one
stick.
wants to
Okay,
talk about it.
yes.
No one ever wants to talk about it.
Yes.
And I don't understand what the big, huge flipping deal is, because it happens to every woman.
It's perfectly
And I'm
natural.
tired of it being shameful and, like in the dark.
So you were, I imagine, especially 10 years in, at some point you've been giving medication maybe to help the symptoms? No?
No.
The hot flashes
so
or
here's
anything?
the deal. Because there's a huge history of cancer in my family, I can't take any hormone-based therapy.
Oh, wow.
Because
Okay.
estrogen promotes cancer growth.
Oh, wow. I did not know
ask
that.
my doctor at one point for some Xanax.
Okay.
And my doctor is a great doctor to me. He's been a wonderful doctor to me, but he says Xanax is a Band-Aid. And I don't, and he said, and you have sort of an addictive personality, and I'm not going to give you a script for Xanax.
Oh, wow.
He, on the day of my mother's funeral, he wrote me a prescription for 4 Xanax, and it was so embarrassing going to the pharmacy and saying, may I have my 4 Xanax? They're
Right.
like, junkie over here. But I agree with his logic. Yeah, I agree with
Just
his
4.
logic. You can't put a Band-Aid like, oh, I'm experiencing
Right.
anxiety, so
Right.
take a pill. I think that is kind of a chicken shit way. I've learned to manage it with diet and exercise. I mean, at least deal with it. I still have horrible symptoms.
Sure.
And I still have moments of just like complete hysteria. But I find that if I exercise regularly and get proper sleep and just take care of myself,
Yeah.
then I mean, everything is better if you just do those simple things.
Sure.
Your whole physical health is better if you do those things. So I just focus on that. And I realize like it can't go on forever. And as I've said, I'm like the last maybe 6 months, I've only had a couple of major, what I call meltdowns, where it literally is like my head feels like it's made out of hot candle wax. And it's awful when you get yourself all pretty and in a nice dress and your makeup on, and then you melt.
Do you feel it coming on before it happens?
No.
Just happens.
It just happens.
So let me ask you, your other basic instincts, that you have like in life as far as still doing A to B, are those still intact? Like you still want to eat here and, go to work and meet up with friends, X, Y, and Z. Has any of that changed?
Yes. I certainly don't have the energy. Once you go through the change, you sort of lose interest in a lot of things that used to be very interesting and very exciting for you. The opposite sex, socializing. Basically, all I want to do now is do the very best job I can do at my job and maintain the relationships that are important to me, and then I want to go home.
Yeah.
That's it. And I used to feel like, oh, I've got to go here, I've got to meet them, I've got to try this, I've got to, start this and do that. And you realize I only have so much energy to go around. And so I have to really narrow it down and focus on what's really important.
Well, and with that being said, I'm gonna be a little crude, and I'm gonna ask, do you still get horny going through menopause?
Yes.
Do you still have urges?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
They're not as, like, they're certainly not strong enough to, like, make me want to pursue any sort of personal relationship, but I do have a vibrator, and I use it.
Okay.
And that's enough for me. That's all I really need at this point, to actually get involved with another person, and the time and energy and the just what all that requires. I have absolutely no interest in that whatsoever.
I think we all know that requires a lot of work.
Yeah.
So.
And I have absolutely no desire to do any of that.
So you're going through all of this. How do you feel though? I mean, you look great.
Thank you.
You seem great.
I feel I've learned how restorative sleep is. I feel tired now at the end of a day, where I didn't used to. My joints hurt. I just feel like I'm getting older, but I feel pretty good. Like, I listen to people who are half my age complaining about things, and I'm like, oh, for God's sake. You sound like such a whiny little, like, ungrateful person. You know?
Right.
I'm
like, you don't know. You don't even know. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel really good most of the time, and then there's some days where it's like, oh, I'm in a funk and I don't know why, and I just think, well, 'cause you are.
Yeah.
And I give myself a little pass. I'm a lot easier on myself than I used to be. I don't think I have to be like guns a-blazing 24/7 anymore.
No.
I deserve to have, downtime and rest.
Right.
Or I deserve to say no to certain people or certain things that are
Absolutely.
asking for my attention or for my time.
And that takes a long
And
time for a lot
it takes a
of
long
people
time
to
learn how to say no.
Yes.
It takes a long time to learn how to say no, and
I
I've
know
gotten
that.
much better at saying, oh, fuck no. No way.
So if there's something as far as menopause that you kind of want to put out there, if you will, to people, like misunderstanding, or just to guide them and give them advice and maybe how to deal with it, or X, Y, what do you want to say?
I want to say that we shouldn't be ashamed or embarrassed by the symptoms, and we should share more information with one another as women.
Yes.
So, like I said, there are so many women in my life that could have told me this is going to happen. And I don't know why they didn't, and I think it's because they were embarrassed, or they think it's a very personal, private matter. And in a sense it is, but it's so public. You're so publicly melting down. And I have absolutely no problem saying to people, hey, look, I'm in the middle of menopause. That's why I have to go away from you right now and go stand in the freezer. I say that point blank, and my friends that I work with who are mostly male, they joke around a little bit, but they do not, they've been actually pretty cool about it. When you tell people the truth and when you're honest about how, they can see I'm suffering. And that's one thing I really do want to get across, is you are suffering. You are suffering physically, and you feel crazy. And you shouldn't, because you're not crazy. You're just going through a hormonal change.
Absolutely.
You know, and when you come out on the other end, you know, you just feel so much better just being honest and open about it.
Right.
And like I said, learning to say no. Like, no, I can't do that. I can't go there because I'll be tired.
Here's my
or
limitations.
I don't have the energy to meet new people or to go to your party. I don't, you know, like getting dressed and doing your hair and makeup, it's like you think, to myself, I think, oh my God, I'll be sweating like a hog by the time I, you know, get myself together, and then I have to go and pretend to be interested in all this, and I'm just not. You know, you, like I said, you lose interest in certain things where I think biologically you're wired to want to attract people to you and to bring people around you when you're younger. And as you get older, you sort of start to focus more on yourself and just you're more comfortable being alone. At least that's how it's been for me.
Right. Annie, thank you so much for coming and talking to us.
Pleasure.
You've been a wonderful guest. And,
thank you.
You know, these are topics that really need to be addressed, especially menopause. I think I've said it once, I think I said it like 3 times, how silly it is that we don't discuss it.
I agree.
We should discuss it. It's something that's perfectly natural, and we need to understand, and we need to be more in tune. And I love the fact that you came and shared so much knowledge and truth with us.
Thank you.
You know, and for anybody who wants more knowledge and truth, there's a plethora out there on the interwebs. So go find it, and there's a lot of Annies that are willing to share a story. So thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you so much for joining us. This has been great. Thank you,
my
Annie.
dear.
No, that was a double sandwich.